Hey guys, just want to announce real quick that we're having a little bit of technical difficulties on my end, probably internet wise, so please just hang in for a moment. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Yappington Central podcast. It's been a hot minute since we've done one of these, so yeah, today I am joined by Frantic Scopes. Sounds like a NASCAR engine. Anyways, I'm also joined by Rail Fanloy. Okay, I am and Redline Overload.
You've been thunderstruck.
Tyler.
Me got now la cuista.
And the CEO of Wasatch Videos, Jaden. Jaden.
Oh Christ, my mic
Oh no,
it disabled. Well, hello.
What?
E-
Okay, well, alright. Okay, well, how's everyone?
Hey Ashton, we have a slight issue here. Viewers are complaining that they can only hear my audio, your audio, and the rail fanboy honk noise.
Seriously?
this
So
is certainly a
telling me
surprise.
nobody can hear Redline Overload, Tyler, or Jaden.
Bruh.
Let me check.
I mean, on my screen,
The icons aren't popping up in the stream. I have it up on one of my tabs, or never mind, the icons are flashing, so I don't know what's going on with it.
Okay, I got to. Oh my god. Okay, I got. It says it from what I can see. Okay, on my end it's working.
Oh.
It seems that the volumes have balanced out now too, because I was listening to the stream just here for a second, and it was like absolutely deafening.
Oh,
It's insanely loud.
I may or may not have adjusted them a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's good to do. It'd be terrible if something like what's happening right here to all the viewers with headphones.
Are you kidding me?
Oh my lord.
Well, I mean, what's the worst that can happen if they were wearing hi-fi headphones or something and then just heard a noise, sort of like "Wake up!"
Oh
all
my
of
lord.
a sudden. I mean,
It's a
that's the worst
long
thing that
night
happened.
to the top, baby. Wanna rock and roll?
Brian, I don't know if you know this, but you actually genuinely blew out my left. Like, you blew out the left speaker in my headphones.
Seriously?
You just blew up the. I.
Oh my lord.
Oh,
So
it's
Ashton
back.
is now
It's
deaf
back.
in one
It's
ear.
back.
We can successfully say that a pipe bomb went off.
Dang, alright, that works, I guess.
Hello, Dennis.
Now, if you'll excuse me a moment, lad, I believe I've browned my trousers.
Excuse me, good
Oh my
sir,
god.
We are having a little bit of a technical problem.
This has to be the most. This has to be the most unhinged opening to a Yappington Central podcast episode so far.
I've never been on one of these, so I have no idea if that's true or not. So
Now I'm going to tell you this right here, right now. This is not the wildest or most unhinged start to a stream. No, that would have to be the infamous incident of rail fanning 2024. Anybody who has questions about that, please contact my email. Yes, this is a legit email. It is bovine extract at gmail.com. Yes, you heard me right. It is bovine extract at gmail.com. Send me an email with your complaint or your question. Either way, I won't read it.
Did you actually make that an actual email? Are you insane?
Send me an email and see what happens.
I'm going to send you.
I have it tied to my phone.
You know what?
You're a lunatic, I'll say that much. Good lord.
While we're
There's no way we're doxing ourselves today.
because this is being a little unhinged, I just want to show everyone this GIF.
This is all my fault. Like one mic failure, and then like it just all went out the window.
Yeah, apparently.
So for
Though I
those-
am wondering if the audios are still being a little wonky on the
Let me check.
screen. Yeah, please.
Check the messages there.
Oh my.
So, what? What are you laughing at?
Ashton, I don't know if you're aware,
Ow.
but
What?
you may or may not have displayed a Southern boxcar on stream.
Oh, I did that on purpose.
Oh my lord.
I did that on
Oh.
purpose.
Why?
Well, in that case, is there any way that you can zoom in on
Not good enough?
the thing here? No.
Okay, I think audios are going through now.
Okay, here is the email.
All right, cool.
All right.
Do we maybe want to do another audio check before we actually move on with the stream?
Maybe. That might be a good
We
idea.
already fixed it. How well? Actually, I'm a little bit quieter for everyone.
There you go.
There we go.
So for anyone interested,
It appears
It is
the problem
legit.
is like me switching to my TV remote app. That's only like what's causing like the mic delay.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
Well, anyways,
Panama. Huh?
I'm gonna send you between the Panama Canal and see what happens.
no, you know where we send them? We send them on down to South Park, gonna have us a good time.
This is
No, we
never
send
gonna
them
get
down to
better.
Panama and have Van Halen playing at all times.
Oh, lord.
If it wasn't copyrighted, I would absolutely play a clip from it. But unfortunately, we have something called copyrights, and for whatever reason, we tolerate YouTube. So there's that.
Okay.
We're the proletariat, gentlemen.
Copyright's a necessity, but it is not fun either.
Today, our first topic, and I think this is a topic that we didn't discuss about in the briefing, but I think would be an interesting idea. What if we talked about theme park railroads?
That is actually a very good idea.
Hmm.
Today, I think we are going to let first topic would be Dollywood. Funny enough, before we
Oh,
started
boy.
this, Loy was actually talking about why the Dollywood Express was not running. And if I remember correctly, a lot of stuff this year and last year has been happening with Dollywood and another theme park railroad that we will get into later. Loy, you have the mic.
All right, so the reason why the Dollywood Express has not been running at the beginning of the season is due to a risk of fires. Yeah.
We don't want
Not
a California situation here.
No, we don't. We already had like 2 fires in the Smoky Mountains.
They're smoky for a reason.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't one of the 2 engines at Dollywood have their cylinders blow up or something?
No.
No. Okay, then. Thought I remember hearing something about that, but all right.
Now, there was an incident where one of the locomotives, I think it might have been 192 or 70, where didn't they have a car derail due to a switch?
Yes, that would be Car 3. 192 was on that train. One of the wheel sets of Car 3 jumped the tracks due to a rough section of rail. About like 3 people were injured, not serious. So after that, they took some of the cars out of service and did like a full wheel set change. Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't actually know they had a wheel set change.
Well, they changed all the wheels to new ones, and these new ones are a bit bigger, and that makes the car sit a bit higher. And you can definitely tell which cars those are due to the coupler height.
Oh.
Yeah.
What about the roof height?
Yeah, there is a picture somewhere on the interwebs of that.
Well,
one of the viewers have said that he believes 192's pistons have shattered.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, that I remember details now. A while ago, I actually did talk to somebody who was actually riding behind 192 when that happened, and her engineer side cylinder just kind of crabbed itself, shattered, broke.
Also, 192's leaf spring did break one time.
Oh joy!
Is that okay? So when I went to Dollywood, they've always run 70. Is this why they never run 192?
70 likes to actually run. 192 runs whenever she wants to.
So you're telling me the one engine's pickier than the other?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now you're making me think of me and my brother, because we both kind of... Austin's picky. I'm like, yeah, I'll eat drywall.
Now, this is why I'm glad to be an only child.
I mean,
you're lucky.
Okay, cool. All I'm gonna say is that you lucky bastard.
Anyways.
Okay. Anyways, so now speaking of theme park railroads, the Tweetsy Railroad. Now,
yes.
Do any of you guys have any information on Tweetsy at all? I know Nick, one of our older hosts, used to have a lot of information about that line. Do you guys have any?
So the theme park or the actual narrow gauge line?
12's
the theme park.
Okay, so I've only been to Tweetsy once, and that was for Heritage Weekend. Matthew, do you know anything?
Well, what specifically do we want to refer to in
12.
Tweetsy?
12's rebuild.
Oh, the current rebuild?
Yeah.
Like the one that's... Okay, so information that we're... Overall, I'm just going to say this about it. It gets done when it gets done. There has not been a time constraint placed on the shop crew, surely because this is a restoration that cannot be messed up. This
Yeah.
locomotive, aside from a handful of consumables such as the rings in the pistons, some wear packets or wear packing around the babbits to seal them, a handful of rubber seals, the innards of some of the gauges, and a handful of valves that have had to be replaced, is largely original to how it was when it came off the line. This includes all of the boiler rivets and plates. When they commenced the restoration, the whole purpose in doing it was 12 started having some weird leak down anomalies. These are, it's something all steam engines have that have a riveted boiler. So when it's cold, it starts to leak down as it cools. And they notice the thresholds start to increase at a weird rate. See, normally when the locomotive is cold, it will be the least sealed. However, in 12's case, it was the most sealed, and it would pass a leak down when cold, but would not pass a leak down when it was still warm. So they decided, it's old, it's worn out, needs some of the wear parts replaced, so they'd go ahead and start a rebuild. As they've lit into the boiler, they found a lot of spots that are just a little bit thin for comfort, and it's taking them a long time because the components, there's very few that have had to be recast, but the vast majority of the components there's no need to recast them. The handful that are, they're doing it perfectly. They will use the same Bessemer steel methods that were originally used.
Bessemer?
Bessemer steel method is a specific way of blowing a controlled amount of atmospheric air into the steel to make sure that you have the perfect amount of carbon in the steel.
Yeah.
See, the difference in iron and steel is the amount of carbon that's in the steel. Iron's pure.
That's actually the reason why the Bessemer in Lake Erie is called the Bessemer. It's because of, the steel-making industry in Pittsburgh and the process they used at U.S. Steel. And that's why it was called the Bessemer.
Yep, the Bessemer method. And so that method's used in making the steel for those boilers. Now, while using Bessemer-style steel is incredibly risky in ships, if those that know your history know that Bessemer-style steel, it has a really high carbon count and is fairly brittle, is what caused the Titanic and the Edmund Fitzgerald to sink, as well as countless battleships of that era. When used in a ship hull, it does not fare well, but when used in a steam boiler, which is incredibly hot, hundreds of degrees Fahrenheit, and under a lot of pressure, you need a hard steel so that it will not deform, and you need, especially in a riveted boiler, a type of steel that will not work harden. Bessemer steel does not work harden very quickly. So they're having to go back and find someone that has a forge and is willing to do Bessemer steel method. This is fairly difficult to do, but they've managed to do it. They've also had to remill and resize a bunch of parts as they have the original drawings. They have the construction drawings for that class of locomotive. They want to make sure that everything is put back to original spec and made more consistent than it previously was. From some information that I've been given, I cannot verify this in any way, so take it with that bit of knowledge. Some of the rod bearings and rod surfaces were not sufficiently trued and really needed to be put better into round as well as put to original spec. So I've been told that they are in the process of doing that. This rebuild goes far beyond what the FRA would require if this was a mainline operation as well. That is an important thing to notice. 12's rebuild will go above and beyond any standard ever placed. The downside of this is it may take several years to complete. This is not a repair. This is a rebuild, and it's a serious deal. Like it goes big time.
Well, that makes sense, as E18WNC12 is the last surviving steam locomotive from the narrow gauge part of the ET and WNC. Isn't it the last of its class, too?
Yes, it is.
Wait, wasn't there a 14 as well?
There was, but it was burned in the roundhouse fires up in White Horse.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the last remaining and.
It is the only of its class.
Which makes sense why they wanted to take so much care of it in order to try to make it as, it kind of reminds me of the story of the first. So, for those of you who know the show The Dukes of Hazzard, when they first found the first ever jumped General Lee, they tried to restore it with all the processes they would have used on set or when they were making the cars themselves. They even used steel from the correct era. And it kind of reminds me of that, knowing how that worked out. But that's really interesting. I don't know, something that I don't have much information on it, but something that I want to look into is the Cedar Point Railroad. So, Cedar Point is a theme park, and they have their own railroad, primarily run by little 040s and I think a few 260s, if I'm not mistaken. But it's a very interesting little line, and I think it might be something to look into. But, so,
AJ?
Yes?
So, I don't know that much about Cedar Point. I only know a little bit. So I visited Cedar Point in 2018 with some family, and I rode the train. It was a fun ride. I believe the steam locomotives at the Cedar Point Railroad are actual coal-burning steam locomotives.
They are.
They're actual live steam engines. Because I think a lot of theme parks out there, they have trains that look like steam locomotives, but they have the diesel. They either have a diesel engine in the tender, or it's a gas engine in the tender that actually powers the train.
They're always a
I know that the zoo that's in my hometown, they have a train. They have a zoo train, and I rode it when I was just a little. I rode it when I was just a little wee lad.
Yeah. Whilst we're on a similar topic to that, the Six Flags Over Georgia amusement park by Six Flags over in Atlanta, they used to have steam-operated locomotives. However, they converted at least one of them to gas or diesel, and they gave it some pretty hideous grills on the side of its tender. They are very obvious.
One exhaust on the side of it. I rode behind that thing. It's pretty much disappointing.
So,
yeah, I've seen images of it. I hate it. It's just no. But then again, I did see that one of them basically basically engulfed itself into flames almost entirely.
Dang.
Jesus.
So, fun fact about the Cedar Point Railroad, one of their porters, which I believe is either an 040 or 240, actually came from Carbon Limestone in Hillsville, PA, which is the same mine that Henry, those of you who know my channel, is one of my favorite narrow gauge engines, worked at. And it runs. And you can ride behind it. So technically you're riding behind of one of Henry's many brothers and sisters and cousins or whatever. I don't know. There's a lot of inbreeding.
Something like that, I guess.
I mean, it's
Sweet
Never
home Alabama. Okay.
Sweet
Also,
Sweet Home Pocono.
From what I could find, most of their engines at the Cedar Point are 240s and coal burning, I think.
Yes, they are. Alright. Besides theme parks, let me think for a moment. So, would you guys consider Tweetsy a theme park or or more of a tourist line?
It has a train robbery show, so
Definitely a theme park.
Yeah.
Because if we were going to look at, let's say, a tourist ride kind of a deal, a great example of this would be what the Tennessee Central Railroad Museum is about to be. They have the 576, soon to be one of the last Dixie class standing around. It is going to be back on the road again here very shortly. And the goal is to have a steam excursion that goes to Waterton, from Nashville to Waterton, and then from Waterton back to Nashville. Once they get the line opened up to heavy traffic going all the way out to Monterey, it'll get to be a little over 100 miles that they'll traverse. This will mean that, or the way that they'll have it set up is they will have some kind of show stuff going on, but the whole goal of that line will be a touristy line. If we were to look on the opposite spectrum of that, we could look for a theme park. A good example of the theme park is Dollywood. Dollywood is a theme park that just so happens to have a train ride in it. It is not built around the train ride. However, I would dare to say, since it is not recreating a line, this is in reference to Tweetsy, since Tweetsy is not attempting to recreate a line, it is instead set in the far west. It's supposed to be like, California or so is the range that it's set in, and not in its local area. I would dare to say it's not a tourist line, or technically it's a theme park, but I would have a hard time calling it that. I would say it would fit more in a new category, think railroad park or something of that nature. A park that's about a railroad and about a older lifestyle built around said railroads and transportation, but definitely not a theme park. It does have a theme, but it differs from the standard. So I have a hard time calling it a theme park.
Okay. Well,
May I suggest one theme park that we might be forgetting about?
what?
Knott's Berry Farm.
Wait, is that out in California?
Yes, and they have narrow gauge. They have narrow gauge trains out there.
So they have two locomotives, Rio Grande Southern 40 or 41, can't remember. And they got Denver and Rio Grande Western 340.
Stay right here.
You also have an RGS motor car out there, I think, one of the Galloping Geese.
Yeah, they have a goose. Wait, speaking of goose.
Oh god. I'm sorry, but can somebody catch me up to speed real quick? I had to go for a minute.
I've got a story.
Which railroad are we talking about now?
I've got a story. So, that railroad that you just mentioned, Fisher, my great-great-grandfather, who worked for the Pennsylvania Railroad, actually visited that in the 50s, and he has multiple photos of Denver and Rio Grande Western 41. Yes, on the tender it says
Rio Grande Southern.
The photos don't say Southern, though.
No, 40 or 41 is Rio Grande Southern.
Well, then why did my photos just have Denver Rio Grande Western?
They are both 40 and 41 are originally from the DNRGW. However, they did get reallocated to the Rio Grande Southern.
That would explain it. It's also known as the Gold Nugget. So, it's kind of funny.
Ghost Town and Calico.
Are we just forgetting about Walt Disney?
Well, Walt Disney... Okay, their locomotives are kind of... I don't know. I went to Walt Disney World in... I think that's the Florida one. So
Yes, Walt Disney World is the one in Florida. I've been there. I've actually been in their shops before, actually.
So,
I'm the Florida man. I know everything.
So I actually went down there, and the railroad was closed though. But I was actually able to drive. my uncle actually lives down. My great uncle lives down there, and he lives by the engine facility. So I got to see some of the locomotives in the shops, which was really freaking cool.
Yes.
But yeah, Disney is kind of interesting. Hearing the story about their locomotives was kind of.
Some of the stories of the engines at the Walt Disney World Railroad, they're actually pretty interesting because some of them were like 50 or so years old before they got purchased. So
I hear they were from. I don't know if they were from there, but they were bought in Mexico.
a few of them were bought from Mexico, though. I don't know about all of them. I do know for a fact. I believe the first two were from Mexico. So,
Right.
which whenever they were purchased, at first they did. Whenever they first arrived, they would have a more traditional look, like what you would normally think of, like an narrow gauge steam locomotive, like for example 346 from the DNRGW and 41 from the Rio Grande Southern, and so on and so forth. However, whenever they were brought into the Walt Disney World areas or Disneyland as well, they would actually be backdated to look more 19th century styled. As that's the style that Walt Disney himself wanted the engines to look like. So,
So, yeah.
they actually, which they do actually have split knuckles, by the way. So,
Well, apparently, the railroad itself got sponsored by Walt Disney's former place of work, the Santa Fe.
I don't
No,
think
no.
Walt
It was
actually.
the Missouri Pacific, I think.
No. He's half right. I cannot confirm or deny Walt Disney working on the Santa Fe. I don't think he
No.
did.
When
However-
Walt Disney was a kid, he was a paperboy on the Missouri Pacific.
Okay, all right. Okay, but Walt Disney was actually good friends with one of the main heads of the Santa Fe at the time. So he was able to work out a sponsorship of the Santa Fe actually sponsoring the Walt Disney World Railroad because
The Disneyland
at the
and Santa Fe
time,
Railroad.
because at the time the Walt Disney Railroad actually wasn't a part of the main Walt Disney World company. It was its own separate thing from the rest of the park. So
Huh.
Brett Law. That's that was the name of the company. So Walt made his own private company for the railroad called Brett Law Enterprises. That company owned the railroad, so Walt could run it how he wanted it to. And there's like multiple pictures of Walt Disney driving some of the locomotives.
yeah, because Walt's a rail fan through and through.
Thanks to Ward Kimball.
Yep. So still on the topic of amusement parks and trains and whatnot. May I mention a railroad that is in Michigan, and I live roughly an hour from the Huckleberry Railroad in Crossroads Village,
152.
where where one of two K-27 mud hens still exists. That's Rio Grande, Denver and Rio Grande Western, number 464, the last K-27 in its class. It is a 3-foot narrow gauge. They have 2 steam engines. 464 is under rebuild, as far as I know. A good friend of mine went down there, and I also have a kind of a special memory with the Huckleberry Railroad. That was like the first real train ride that I ever got when I was just a little wee lad in like 2000, back in the late 2000s. Probably the first live actual steam locomotive I ever saw was Rio Grande 464. So that's fun. It's been darn near 10 years since I've actually been down there riding the train, I might go down there this year because I have a niece, and that'd be fun. To go down, ride the train, and of course it's so kind of how the Huckleberry Railroad got started is there was a lot of it's in Genesee County, Michigan, and there was a lot of historic buildings that were in around that area, and there was a development that was wanting to start. They kind of want to tear all those buildings down, and the Preservation Society of whatever it is down there basically said, hey, we don't want these buildings to go away. So they created Crossroads Village, and then I think there was an old railroad alignment, probably standard gauge. I think it was standard gauge, but they re-gauged it to 3 foot narrow gauge. And then, fun fact, 464 actually went from the Rio Grande to Knott's Berry Farm, but I think due to maybe the locomotive not being very compatible with Knott's Berry Farm, it didn't run there all that often. And then sometime in the 1980s, 464 went to the Huckleberry Railroad, and that's where it's resided ever since. And, you know, the Huckleberry Crossroads Village has some theme park things. They have a Ferris wheel. They have a miniature train. It's like 7.5 inch gauge, something like that. A miniature train, and then some of the more general fare type rides. Which, by the way, that's something we could also talk about. Is apart from just like life size, like 1-to-1 full scale trains. Talk about miniature trains, stuff that's like 7.5 inch gauge. The trains that you basically ride on. So
yeah. Could do that at some point, but I do remember hearing about the 454 or 464 running on the Knott's Berry Farm, or not Knott's Berry. What's the one that owns Rio Grande Southern 41 again?
that's Knott's Berry Farm.
Oh, okay. I'm just going insane. Got it. I do remember hearing about 464 going to Knott's Berry for a bit and then not working well there, and then going to Huckleberry, which. Don't they also own one of the few remaining Alaska Railroad air gauge steam locomotives, or am I just thinking wrong?
Yes. So I don't know the history of 152 all that well. So like I don't want to go on about it and then just get stuff wrong, but I want to say that maybe 152 was like a U.S. Army locomotive, and that's why it was in Alaska.
No. Okay, this part. Okay, the beginning of 152's life, I do not know that much. It's just some of the middle area stuff. The Alaska Railroad, if my memory is working correctly, so take what I say with just a grain of salt. But if memory serves correctly, the Alaska Railroad was actually started construction as a 3-foot gauge line instead of standard gauge. Hence why 152 existed. So it actually was owned and operated by the Alaska Railroad that, in a way, still stands right now.
Interesting. Now, did 152 serve long enough in Alaska to be, a part of like any U.S. Army like efforts in Alaska?
U.S. Army, that much I don't know, as all I know is kind of just the beginning of its life-ish. And its present life, if you will. I don't really know much about the middle ground, so
okay.
I don't think it did last long enough in Alaska, because I believe by that point they screwed the air gauge thing and just went with standard gauge. But I'm not sure, so I assume they did. Well, actually, wait, actually, no, they probably did, because some of the K-28s also went over to Alaska, but that was over by the White Pass, so I don't know.
Alright.
Details.
So.
Yeah, details.
Well, that was really interesting. A lot of that stuff's really cool. Still kind of interested on why there's a Rio Grande engine in Michigan, but,
May I say this one thing, AJ?
Well, there is Little River 110, which should be back in Tennessee.
For all the Rio Grande foamers, come and pry this mud hen out of my cold dead hands.
Listen, it just
they already have. Well, I mean, here's the thing though. They already have one mud hen over there on the Cumbres and Toltec. They're fine.
Good.
Well,
You know the Rio Grande Foamers. They constantly want the other mudhead.
Oh my lord, yes.
All right. Well, I think we should move on from this to our next topic, which is our second topic.
Probably should.
We spent 40 minutes on that. Good lord. Okay, anyways. Now we're going to talk about the namesake of this. Trains and movies. So,
yes.
something interesting that Fisher actually made... Was it Fisher or was it Jaden? I forget who made this observation, but we have not had a train-focused movie since Unstoppable, which is kind of interesting.
That's what I pointed out. Bullet Train.
Unless you want to count
Oh, right.
Well, still, it's more of like...
It's basically centered around the people in it. It's not really about the train itself, or just
Right.
like...
Isn't that Snowpiercer?
Yeah.
Well, that's the TV show, and it's not as railroad-y as you would think.
It's
Not really anything like Emperor of the North or Unstoppable.
Yeah, fair. I suppose with the Snowpiercer, I suppose it would more so count as just the train is quite literally just the set and not like
Literally,
Yeah.
the actual
It's still
an actual
under the,
major plot thing.
one thing that I... Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, sorry, you go.
One thing I love about Emperor of the North is how they kind of experimented with a moving set. Well, that doesn't sound like breaking on the surface, but if you think about it, everything takes place on the train, and the train's always moving, so they're not always in the same place. Unlike most like movies where sometimes you'll have reoccurring locations. In Emperor of the North, they're never in the same place, and I find that very interesting to how they're able to incorporate the train into how they get around, and the train doesn't seem like the big focus when you watch it. But when you realize how important the train actually is to the movie, then it kind of makes more sense on why it's a railroad movie.
Which, can I go ahead and just bring up like one or two locomotive things, I guess?
Sure.
Alright, so I don't know if any of you have already heard about this. I would not be surprised if you did, but like a long time ago, like honestly, probably nearly a century ago, there actually was just a straight up movie that just had two engines basically doing like a reverse tug of war thing on the Milwaukee Road.
Oh, yes.
Light. Basically, just a romance on the railroad thing I'm above. They actually filmed this on the Milwaukee Road.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, yeah, you can actually watch this movie free on YouTube because it's public domain.
Yeah, it's been in public domain for a very long time now. Probably like anywhere from 50 to 80 years. Something like that.
I recall this Asian movie. There is like this girl, I think her grandma or father took a train. They died in a horrific collision, actually. The daughter went on to work for the same company and the same service her father died on. So essentially there's this whole thing that's happening. The train is cursed to meet the train that crashed. So a lot of supernatural stuff happens. There's dead people on the train that shouldn't be there. And at some point, I think the girl herself died.
Okay, that is definitely something, I guess.
I can
That
make a
is
really,
something.
really screwed up joke.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
May I?
What has he done?
I have no idea.
God. I can imagine the girl walks into a coach and sees her dad and says, "You finally came back," and disappears.
Oh my god.
My lord.
And it's just like the Walter White falling.
What the? Oh my lord. Oh boy.
Put me in a mental hospital.
Don't we all?
Hello.
All right, it's been good. We are off the air.
No.
Not again.
No. What
bring
is
it back
this?
down
A
to earth.
Soundsmith episode? Hello, Waukesha, one I can't say it. Subrail fan.
Waukesha.
Shaw.
Waukesha.
I believe that's Waukesha. Waukesha Sub-Real fan.
It's like the Worcestershire sauce.
Worcestershire sauce.
Worcestershire. Am I the only one who doesn't have a problem speaking that like normally? Like I could just say it easily.
Worcestershire.
Just like
Western Hemisphere.
Just like
Western
how nobody
Hemisphere
can
sauce.
pronounce
Hemorrhoid.
nobody can pronounce that one Norfolk Southern Heritage unit,
Monongahela.
the Mahanganela.
The Monongahela unit.
Hello, King of the PRR. You just died, but you're alive. I don't know if you know this, but those are two different There's like two different meanings.
Oh boy.
So,
Getting back on track here, no pun intended. Has anyone, at least anyone here, watched any of the Orient Express films?
I've seen the original and the remake.
I've seen the remastered of the movie. The remaster for the movie.
I'm planning to watch the remastered myself. So what's it like?
Personally, I enjoyed it. So, though I don't remember if they used an actual real steam locomotive or not for that. I think they did.
They actually used an actual steam locomotive for the original and the new one.
Nice.
So may I talk about a movie that, in my opinion, is probably one of the best train movies made, and that is, and just by the way, spoilers. I will probably spoil the movie, so maybe if everyone in the chat doesn't want to hear spoilers about the movie, maybe you just mute the stream until I'm done talking. Anyways, basically, there's a movie called Runaway Train 1985. Now, Runaway Train 1985, I say Runaway Train 1985 because there's another movie called Runaway Train. Anyways,
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt, but isn't it the one that used like a pair of CN M420s and was based down in Chicago, or am I thinking of?
You're confusing.
That's Silver Streak, I think.
Silver Streak.
Yeah.
Was it Silver Streak? I thought it was. Okay, I could have sworn it was either.
Wait, no. Silver Streak has an F unit. It's like a Canadian National, or it's like a Canadian Pacific F unit.
Crap, what was that renamed?
Anyways, so Runaway Train.
Atomic
It's Atomic Train that I'm thinking of from 1999. Atomic Train.
Atomic Train. Oh gosh, that movie.
Sorry to interrupt.
I've seen clips of Runaway Train. It's about like a like light power just running away, and I think there's criminals on board.
So okay.
Oh yeah, that one. Yes, that one does have. Yeah, two criminals jumping on a train to try to escape prison.
Oh, sorry.
Only for that train to become a runaway.
That's okay. So basically, the gist of Runaway Train 1985 is, it's two escaped convicts escaping a high security prison in the state of Alaska. I think they actually filmed the movie in Canada, but it's in Alaska. That's where it's set. And they escape. They come upon a train yard that is, I guess, supposedly in the movie it's supposed to be the Alaskan Railroad, but I think due to copyright, it's just the Alaskan something. I don't know. And the two convicts, the consist of it, and this is how you can always tell, is like a GP38. It's like it's a Jeep, and it's like a standard cab GP locomotive. The second unit is an old F unit, round nose, probably an F7 or something like that. And then it's like two GP7s behind it. And basically, the engineer that is operating the locomotives in the movie goes straight to 8 in the yard, like straight to 8, like from idle to straight to 8. And if you and it just hold your horses, Tyler. Okay. And it's so funny because if you look at the clip, he has the reverser in neutral and he's going straight to 8, and then somehow the locomotives move. It's Hollywood. And by the way, like, I mean, we're all aware that Hollywood is never going to get things with trains right. So it's like you're just better off just to like just let it slide. Because honestly, like, and this is just an opinion of mine. Like, I've seen videos on YouTube where there's people who are just absolutely tearing apart movies that features trains about everything they get wrong. It's like, it's just Hollywood. They're never gonna get any of this crap right. Just don't expect it to be right. Anyways,
Okay, so
but
can I
yeah.
speak for a second, please?
Yes, Tyler.
Thank you. All right, so it wasn't. Runaway Train actually wasn't filmed in either Canada or Alaska. It was filmed in Montana, apparently.
Montana.
Apparently, from what I can find from a quick Google search, yeah. In Canada, Montana, I believe that's how you pronounce that. I honestly don't know. So, something like that.
Well, I'm sure that there's no one out in the watching the stream anyways. So,
though they did use winterized equipment for the locomotives where appropriate, like the FP7. They actually did use a Montreal or a General Motors diesel build version of it, which were built in Canada, and for both the Canadian roads and the Alaska Railroad. So they did
Canadian EMD. They were built by the Canadian version of EMD is basically all you need to know.
Yeah, pretty much, and they have a giant box on top of them as well.
Yep.
Yeah, winterization-isms. Anyways.
Yeah. But yeah, Runaway Train, John Voight, Rebecca De Mornay, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but very, very much it's very much an adult movie. Like if you're, it's a watch, and in my opinion, it's a great movie, but just kind of spoilers. There's some blood and there's a lot of cursing and there's some real tense moments in the movie, but it's worth a watch in my opinion, because in my opinion, it's just hold your horses, Tyler. The way it was filmed had a very raw, it just had a very raw feel to it. You know, it felt like there was just a camera inside the engines just filming what was going on. Like it felt raw, it felt rugged, it felt just like it's a great movie, and that movie was actually introduced to me by my grandpa, and so yeah, Runaway Train 1985, in my opinion, is certainly worth a watch as far as train movies go. And I think it's actually, so spoilers for the climax of the movie. Basically, John Voight's character makes it up to the head end of the engine after falling. Basically, makes it up the head end of the engine because at some point, because about halfway through the movie, the lead locomotive crashes into the back of another train and basically yeets a caboose right off the tracks. And that causes like the entire front end of the engine to be like completely screwed up. Like the head police chief or whatever guy that basically tried to hunt down John Voight's character gets handcuffed inside the engine, and John Voight climbs on top of the engine to basically, like, the movie just fades out with him riding on top of the engine. So it's a pretty rugged movie, and it's available on YouTube. I think the last time I saw it, may be free with ads on YouTube, but then again, it's only okay.
It is free now on YouTube.
So yeah, anybody watching this, go watch Runaway Train, 1985.
To be warned, there is blood, violence.
There's blood, violence,
questionable moments.
Yes, it like I said, it's an adult movie, and if you're kind of sensitive to those things, maybe kind of avoid watching it if maybe that kind of stuff bothers you. But certainly, but that stuff doesn't bother you, then certainly go check it out. Another train themed movie, and I think, doesn't the F unit exist in preservation?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I believe it does. So what road name, number, or anything like that?
I don't know.
I don't know either. So
yeah, but definitely go check it out. Now, what other? So kind of maybe changing gears, going from TV shows. does anyone know or remember the PBS show Tracks Ahead?
Hold on, I'm gonna have to go.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Loy. One more thing before you go, though.
What's up?
So, because I know Loy wants to show these off before he goes, Loy recently got some new passenger cars.
They are roundhouse models, arch roof passenger cars.
And if you look in the showing, I actually have them on stream right now. Here they are. They are Chicago Northwestern. They are very nice, I will say.
Got them for like $50 for 4 cars.
I know
For
that
how
is.
wait, for how much?
$50.
For 4 roundhouse ones.
Yes.
Not bad.
They're a bit pricey online.
Yeah,
But I got
fair.
these in person.
All right, yeah. Train shows are in person are generally a good way to get things for pretty good deals. So,
Those
I
are some
got
nice cars.
Auto Railroad Club.
all right.
C&W had a nice paint scheme on their passenger cars. Anyways,
So,
Agreed.
first idea, I'm going to be running those cars with my Reading B-Line locomotive. I mean, they have similar colors, so yeah. But
are you planning to maybe repaint those passenger cars in the future to red in colors?
maybe not? I don't know. But I gotta get going.
All right. See you,
All right.
Loy.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Have a good
Bye
night.
bye.
We are at almost an hour. Do you guys want to do one more topic, and then we can wrap it up?
I'm perfectly fine with
gonna
keeping.
go.
Sure.
I'm perfectly fine with keeping this thing rolling, man.
All right. I'm gonna get the ball rolling. I suggested we talk about diesel preservation as the railgun community as a whole. I've been noticing this. It's not really like a big advocate on like the preservation of diesel trash.
That is indeed the case. So,
I'll, if you don't mind me sharing a quick opinion of mine. I know that we've all heard the saying, I know we've all heard the saying, well, steam locomotives bring on the crowds. And while that certainly is true, given the countless steam locomotives that have been restored to preservation, let's just take, for example, one of the more popular examples, I should say, is Union Pacific Big Boy 4014. That locomotive draws the crowds all the time. But I will say this. Yeah, Tyler knows.
yes, I know very well. I have seen the 4014 technically 3 different times. Literally every single time. The crowds, like in terms of numbers, it is well within 4 digits.
Yeah, so
And this in 2 of these locations is basically in the middle of nowhere. So yes, it very much draws in the crowds very well,
Yeah.
very easy.
yes. Now I will say, hopefully in the future, when things start happening, I would like to see the one DDA 40X diesel that got donated to Silvus. I would like to see one of those pull excursion trains because, I mean, I guess if you know the Union Pacific, then you know about the Centennials, but it's like the Centennials are just the most badass diesel locomotives ever. I mean, they're wind prime movers, 4 axles, they're over 100 feet long, and it's just so much horsepower. And like I would love. I will say, diesel locomotives have their place in railroad preservation.
Exactly.
And as weird as it sounds, the Dash 8s and Dash 9s that came out in the 1980s, 1990s, soon enough, we're going to be thinking about getting those into preservation.
I mean,
Yeah,
we already got one
weird as it sounds.
preservation right now.
All the
Yeah,
I've got a bit of a hot take myself. The 2000 variants, they they deserve a place in preservation. Heck, I go so far as to say Gevos deserve a place in preservation for the same reason as the 2000s-9s. They were the backbones of the class.
Can't forget Dash 8.
They
Can I go ahead?
The fact there are so many.
Things real quick?
Sorry, you go ahead.
All right. Okay. So, Fish. The thing about like 6936, I believe its number is that you mentioned earlier. If I remember correctly, they do plan on using them in excursions, like behind 3985 once they get that thing running properly again. So, there's that.
Okay, well, I would like to see just the Centennial.
Well, they're probably going to do that anyway. So, and also, speaking of modern diesel preservation, there's already an SD70 ACE in preservation already.
I'm sorry, what?
Yes, Union Pacific 4141, the George H.W. Bush locomotive. That thing got donated back in 2019, actually.
Yeah. So, okay. I will say this. I think there is already one of these in preservation, an AC 6000, one of the big GEs. Now, what I would love to see is what would be awesome is its counterpart, the EMD ST90 MAC or MAC.
Okay, so about the 6000s, it's actually one of the 3 original demonstrator units, 6001, I believe that's in preservation. But as far as the ST90, as far as I'm aware, those are all already gone. Though I could be wrong.
Now,
but then again, there is the modern form ST70 ACU, which is quite literally just an ST90, but just new prime movers, new electronics, and that's basically it.
So, my point on wait, you go ahead.
No, I literally just finished. Go ahead.
Okay, so my point on Gevos being preserved is that, you have to admit that the reason there are so many of them is because Class 1s, they think they are good. So that's why they ordered so many. That alone is a good enough historical significance. It's literally just the FTs all over again.
Yes, I personally do agree with that idea. They have changed the evolution series as a whole has changed railroading, not just in North America, but the entire world. We basically have evolution series locomotives running dang near everywhere. You got them over you've got them in like Australia, Brazil, I think, China, Britain, I assume, but I know they have SD40s basically, but I'm not sure about ES44s.
Sorry, AJ. So, Tyler, what you just said could lead on to an entirely different topic of, are modern diesel locomotives underappreciated?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. What's
this shouldn't even be for debate.
Agreed.
What's underappreciated? Sorry.
Modern diesel.
Modern diesel locomotives, and the reason why I say they're underappreciated is because think about the trains that have been created under precision scheduled railroading within the last 5, 6, 7 years. Think about trains that are north of 1 mile, trains that are 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 feet, trains that are 3 miles long. Those locomotives, the General Electric Evolution Series locomotives, getting down on their knees, digging into the rails, and pulling those trains with everything they've got. I mean, just the amount of pure force that those engines can.
I know someone who works for CN.
Modern diesel locomotives are works of engineering. They might not be as extravagant as maybe some old steam locomotives, and I'm sure. And I know people love to get into the argument of, this Union Pacific articulated steam locomotive could haul ass up Sherman Hill. It's like, at the same time, it could not even hold a candle to a modern Gevo. I'm sorry.
This leads to another point of what I was going to make. Has anyone at least been exposed to the steam superior diesel inferior trope?
What?
Wait,
Could you repeat
okay.
yourself,
I was
please?
gonna get into something completely different, but
I've
where
never
did
heard
this
of that
come
burger
from?
combination.
So, there's the whole general idea that steam locomotives are still superior, and diesel engines are basically just
Depends on the job.
just stupid proletariats. I hate this trope, and it really just needs to be done away with. They do not get given any credit, even with Sure, you need at least like 2 to 3 diesels to get a train moving, but hey, at least they're getting somewhere. Matter of fact, what Fisher just said, that should at least give some points to some diesels in at least some capacity.
Could an articulated steam locomotive from the 1940s start an 18,000 ton coal train on a 1% grade in the
And you know
Appalachians?
what? Fuck no, they cannot because the modern rolling stock.
Let me throw this in.
Actually, there is
Let
okay.
me-
As
hold
far as the
on.
as far as the
Tyler, let
one
Brian
articulated
speak.
starting that long of a train, there is actually one specific class of engine I would like to bring up about that. That being the Virginian AE. Those things were built solely for power. I would not be surprised if it could handle that actually. And this thing was built in 1918, and it is capable of nearly 200,000 pounds of tractive effort solo.
So let me
Rennick,
throw
what were you
this
gonna say?
little piece of information in here real quick. This is very, very heavily pertaining to what the topic is. The reason why modern motive power, specifically why we would prefer to use that over steam motive power, is, does anyone here drive yet?
Yeah,
Yes.
kinda.
Okay.
I
Have you ever driven, let's say, a pre-1995 vehicle?
Yeah.
Nope.
My truck
So,
is the 2010 model.
yeah. So, 95 and older, we did not have drive-by-wire. Drive-by-wire is basically an electronic drive system that disconnects the pedal from any physical cable ties going directly to the throttle butterfly on a gasoline engine. I prefer drive-by cable, which is a physical attachment to the throttle, because I can get a lot more throttle response. I can kick the throttle pedal and just blip it, and I don't have to worry about a computer trying to smooth out and even out any throttle response. Steam engines are just that. When you blip the throttle, if you move something slightly too much, you instantly put yourself into a wheel slip condition. Now, while you have an insane amount of torque, this torque is not applicable until you get over a set speed. So let's say we're wanting to get this massive coal train on a 1% grade started going up grade. The steam engine would have, in our question, would have the same amount of both tractive effort and adhesive torque to the diesels. Which one is going to get it started faster?
Steam.
Nope,
Fair.
Diesel.
not even close. Diesel will have it launched and already at 25 when steam is still dead still and slipping. The reason behind this is I assume everyone here has seen a hydraulic press at least once.
I've seen videos of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
does YouTube count?
Yes, it does. Because a hydraulic press has absolute control over what it does. As it applies torque, it will apply it only as necessary. Its crushing force is gradual and smooth, most importantly, smooth. In steam, we are using the equivalent of a diesel hammer. Now, if you're not familiar with a diesel hammer, it is a gigantic pylon driver. You would put a piston at the top of the pylon you're trying to drive in, and then you put a 40-ton block of lead with a steel insert that is a cylinder and some fuel injectors and a handful of other devices, and begin dropping it on said pylon and piston. It's very slow. It's absolutely nasty. It covers everything around it in a thick black tar oil that never comes off. It's always there. It smells terrible. It is obnoxiously loud. You can hear it for miles. And it takes forever to drive that pylon. Now, let's say if we had a hydraulic press versus said pylon driver, the hydraulic press is going to get the job done quicker, surely because it applies the torque smoother. The steam engine has, and this is something you'll see in motorcycles, is an issue as well. You have something called torque pulses. Every 1/4 of a rotation, you come into a complete torque pulse, where we're at the height of applied torque from the steam in the piston, as well as the trailing torque from the previous piston turning. This makes a really big spike in power, and this is what causes wheel slip. Diesels are immune to this issue, as instead of having one of these beats every 1/4 of a rotation, they have one of these beats every 1/10,000th of a rotation. They are completely immune to this issue. The only wheel slip that they have is caused by a change in conditions of the rail and the wheel itself. Now, assuming the wheel is ground correctly and lapped correctly, it'll polish itself as it goes. And assuming the rail is clean and clear, the diesel will be able to apply its maximum torque to said track at the perfect graph. That's pretty much the only reason why a diesel applying torque, the electric motors in general applying torque, is far superior. The other issues, of course, go into maintenance and operating cost. A diesel does not need serviced very often. I know this from firsthand experience with this particular. We use the older Alco RS3s as an example. They only need serviced, if you're using them in yard service, they only need a good, thorough go through the checklist about every 150 to 200 hours. And oil changes are basically once a year. Even in mainline service, it was once a year, and change the filters every 3 months. And that's under strenuous service. Steam stuff is going to need, under that same service, somewhere around it. Of course, daily inspections, because it's a time bomb on wheels. One thing is incorrect, and all of a sudden you have a deadly machine on your hands. And the other issue is it's just going to wear out incredibly quickly. There's a reason why we use diesel motive power over steam. While steam is superior in very limited and very specific conditions, it's not the ideal all around.
Can I go ahead and add on to what Frantic has been saying? Okay.
I'll wait.
All right. So, it's not just like a maintenance cost and fuel things as well. It's also a outright power thing. I know tractive effort doesn't really apply the best to diesel locomotives, but just hear me out for a minute. So, the largest steam locomotives and among the most powerful steam locomotives we ever gotten average at around 120 to 140, 120 to 140,000 pounds of tractive effort. Whereas modern diesel locomotives, like for example, the ST70 ACE T4s that EMD has been putting out for the last 3 years, just one of those can put out 200,000. So already, one of these smaller diesels putting out nearly double what these large steam locomotives can handle. And as one locomotive, and you can pair up at least 4 of them by cables, and who knows how many with distributed power unit systems.
This feeds into the point I was going to make. So the concept of steam locomotive and modern freight really is kind of dangerous, because people don't really think about this that much, but the modern rolling stock is significantly heavier than it was back in the 20th century. And you might point back to time 3985 Poland intermodal. Well, that would came with its own set of problems. First of all, the restoration turned out to be kind of haphazard, so there was some problems to be had. Plus, I'm willing to make a guess that after this run, repairs had to have been made because, well, a steam locomotive pulling a double stack container train at speed that size really won't be that good.
Normally, it wouldn't be. However, from what I have been told, all of those containers on that intermodal train, all of them were empty. So,
Well, and let me throw this additional thing once again.
all right.
This is in the comparison of applied torque and motive power. So we'll use a Southern KS type, specifically 630 and 722, which are within a similar range to each other. What do you think would be a comparable diesel to either of those locomotives?
A GP38.
I was about to say probably either like an RS3 or GP38. Honestly,
I was gonna say maybe around like GP30, GP35.
Somewhere around there.
Well, the issue is the Jeep 35 is too much. I heard someone throw in an RS3. The RS3 is almost double the tractive effort and effective adhesive torque. The comparable power unit to it is a D-rated GP9B. That means that all the counterweights have been removed from the frame, and it still has 50,000 foot-pounds of tractive effort, whereas a KS class only has 46,000 pounds of tractive effort. Another factor worth looking at is a factor of adhesion. This is something a lot of people really overlook. Factor of adhesion is a rough number that we associate to how well the torque is applied per pound that the locomotive weighs. We'll use the KS class again. Its factor of adhesion is 4.11, basically meaning that its factor of adhesion is horrible. It does not have very good traction because it's not well timed. The Southern valve gear helps that a lot, but its pistons are just too large for what the locomotive is. And realistically, it's a short stroke locomotive as well. It's designed to have good launch torque, but decent top speed and high efficiency. Another thing worth noting here is we'll use overall locomotive weight. So what do you think if we were to look at the locomotive weight of a Jeep 9, once again, we'll find that it weighs about 250,000 pounds. We'll use the B model that I'm referring to, which is lightened for use in industrial settings where the track can't handle the weight. And if we compare that to, let's see, Jeep 9 is going to be about 250,000 pounds, where a Southern Railway KS is going to be about 215,000 pounds. So let's say we just upsize that and look at something like the 4501. And we're just going to pull up the graph chart here and look at the total machine weight as it sits. So this is much better. The factor of adhesion is a 4.0. Smaller number indicates a higher adhesion per pound. So slightly smoother, probably doing better there. Let's see, things to note here. The total locomotive weight is 272,000 pounds, where the heaviest GP9 we have is 260,000 pounds. So it's 10,000 pounds heavier. And we're going to look at the tractive effort. Tractive effort is only, we'll call that 55. We're just generalizing here. We'll call it 55,000 pounds. And our heavier Jeep 9 is still 10,000 pounds of tractive effort more at 65.
So was the 51,000 from the 4501?
The 51,000 is, no, the 55,000 is me rounding up to your average Mikado. So I'm rounding up from the 01 is actually 53,900 pounds, and your average GP9. These are specifically referring to the ones used by the L&N and just the Southern. I don't believe L&N had these, but the ones that were had there were 64,750 foot-pounds of torque at tractive effort, and their factor of adhesion is irrelevant because it's pretty much a zero. I mean, it would be such a nominal number because it's a perfect adhesion.
But
so
at the same time, correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, engines like 060s and 080s, they still have like adhesions of within like the three, like threes.
One of the best that I know of is a Tennessee Central Mountain class. It is one of, it's 551. It was their flagship locomotive. They rebuilt that thing so many times. They had it dialed in till it was perfect. They meant for it to be the flagship of the railroad. It was used in a lot of their excursions and stuff, and its adhesion factor never got past a 2.9. It was known for having a great launch and a smooth run, but the diesels came in and they would have an adhesion factor of 0.005. What was it? Let's see. Let me check it real quick. The RS3s had an adhesion factor of 0.00954.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah. The flagship steam locomotive you mentioned, is that thing preserved or is it gone?
Unfortunately, no. When the Tennessee Central went bankrupt in '68, the the 506 and the 551 were both supposed to be kept. They were used on excursions that went from Nashville to Harriman, and then from Harriman, they struck a deal with Southern on 3 different accounts to take a doubleheader with the 551 and the 506 and run them into Knoxville, down to the downtown and the L&N station, where they would then be swapped around and they would head back to Nashville. They've only done that a few times, and that was the 1950s when they did this, so it was toward the end of their run. But TC Steam Preservation, the longest one to survive in the whole railroad, was one of the former Norfolk and Western duplexes. It sat on a siding out by like a steel manufacturing place. And
Norfolk and Western had duplexes?
Yeah, genuine. Well, I call them duplexes because when TC got them, they had to weld the frames on one of them. So it had to be changed, and the technicality of the change made it technically a duplex. It's not a duplex realistically, but they called it that.
Anyways, so getting us back on topic, what we were really talking about with, power and everything. I will say this one thing is one of the many advantages that diesel has over steam is diesel locomotives it's module horsepower. You know what I mean? Like you take the train weight and then you do whatever math and you figure out how much horsepower you need. You're thinking, okay, we've got a 10,000 ton train. We need X amount of horsepower. How many locomotives do we need? And how many locomotives, do we need? And do we have locomotives that meet this? Like two modern ST-70 locomotives from EMD that'll be enough to pull this train. So, and that's just another advantage that diesel had over steam, was that it was module horsepower. You needed another diesel? Okay, go to the ready track and grab another one. Whereas steam, you had to think, okay, do we have another locomotive of this class or locomotive of similar class, and is there a crew that we can call? Is this engine steamed up? Is this engine going under maintenance tomorrow or whatever? So that's just another advantage that diesel had over steam, is that you could just offer module horsepower. You need another diesel? All right, just go and grab one. So
unless it's a Baldwin.
Well, and another thing worth mentioning here. I think y'all find this to be an interesting little fact. So, do you know what the most powerful train ever set up was?
It's I believe it was a electric setup in
No, most torque, most applied torque on any train ever set up in the history of railroading. It's not a single locomotive, it's a modular powertrain.
Oh, okay. So,
It had to be the BHP Iron Ore run, I
I
believe.
was about to mention
Nope.
that. Or
Not even close.
something electric and
Not electric, it was diesel electric. I'll give you a hint. It was the final run of a specific locomotive.
Well, that don't help me worth a dang.
The DDA.
They were owned by Norfolk Southern.
The Cadillacs.
They were used on regular freight service, specifically on the East Coast, especially with intermodal and coal freight. Almost never being used for anything else.
The ACU? Wait, no, ACU.
were these GE locomotives?
I'm not sure. I believe they're the Dash 8s.
The G's then.
Yeah.
So when the Dash 8s were being moved for scrap, I actually got to have an interesting conversation online with the engineer who had to piece that train together. 53 units of motive power in total. He had to lash them all with his conductor and make sure they were all set up to MU. The railroad code said that all motive power had to be ready on standby to go. However, they were not set to standby. So the crew decided to put a tad bit of extra fuel in all units and start them up, and rather than shut them down and put them on standby, just leave them idling. So when they got all 53 units of motive power tied and lashed, they were ready to go. As they were getting ready for a departure, it's 53 units of motive power. That's a lot of motive power to have running at once.
Yeah.
And there was a stalled train just outside of the yard, and there was a unit move that needed to go about a state over. So they decided to put 3 trains together behind these pieces of motive power, a total of about 260 cars, and then use the remaining torque that they had to push the stalled train upgrade. They did it. The issue was that the Dash 8s did not have a proper torque management system for that many units of power.
How did they not? I was about to ask, how did they not shred themselves apart? Because if I remember correctly, whenever you MU locomotives using the cables, generally the limit is like 4 or 5 locomotives. Because anything beyond that, from what I know of, causes premature wear on the motors.
You get distortion effects. So if you're familiar with radios and antennas and stuff, you get these things called artifacts in electronics when you transmit signal over really long distances. And basically, it's little bits of interference caused by a slight disconnect here and there. It's like a tiny jump in power, a little spark here and there, or a wire moved and the wave changes slightly. That's technically what causes it. That's what GE officially recognizes it as. However, the reality of the situation is: does anyone here have DCC, HO, or any scale model
Yes.
railroad trains? And have you ever tried to MU them together and run them? Like program them to the same number or use an MU function to run them together?
You mean where you just have the speed matching just out of whack?
Yeah. That's how GEs are.
All right.
That's how they all are. They're never speed matched correctly.
Okay. I was whenever I said that, I was referring. Are you assuming I meant like the distributed power unit systems, or because I was talking about the outright cables, like
Yeah,
the radio systems used at all?
the GE-8s have an electronic cable system. You have to go up and hook the MU cables. They're not like physical pull cables like some of the old systems, like the really old systems used. They are an electronic servo system. However, they do get artifacts in the electronics that prevent them from getting a smooth or continuous signal. I know this because of some friends that work with the Baldwin system. The Baldwin system from the 1940s was an electric system. They used it on, I believe it was the 1010 1000s that received it. TC had a pretty big arsenal of those. And they worked really well. It's just that their MU system was completely incompatible with everything that everybody else had. So...
Yeah, I know Baldwin, the old Baldwin shark noses were like that because Baldwin, for whatever reason, was just so hell bent on going with a air-based system for like throttle reverser and whatnot. So their MU style was also based off of air pressures, which just made them completely incompatible. Which, whilst it was cheaper than just going with electrical systems, made them completely incompatible with other manufacturers' equipment. So,
and see, the goal of the system was using that air specifically was to be able to hook up more than 4 or 5 units. So the reason that a cable, like a pull cable system, does not work well in an MU system is every time you go to a linkage, you get a little bit of extra slack. And it's somewhere around 4 cables. It's enough that you pull an entire notch different of throttle. So let's say you put it in forward and put it 3 notches forward. The trailing unit, the one at the very back of the lash up, would only receive 3 notches of power. Whereas with a Baldwin system, it didn't matter if you had 3 units or 30 units. They would all receive the exact same signal because they use the same air pressure system. Now, the downside is if you get a leak anywhere in the line, it's nigh impossible to fix, and you definitely can't cut it out. But it works really well. The system is super affordable, and it works really well.
Except birds don't like it because they use electrical things.
Hello, I'm back. I have news for everyone.
Yeah.
So, Southern Pacific 4449 is currently getting a hydro test done.
Ooh!
Yeah!
Yes!
And
very good to hear about that.
SPNS 700 is not too far behind that.
Very good.
Ooh, that is awesome.
Very, very good.
Southern Pacific, roll on, roll on.
I'm going to.
We should probably stop before we get copyrighted.
Okay,
that song's not actually copyrighted, funny enough.
Wait, it's not?
Yeah.
So with all that Frantic has analyzed, this basically just proves the point that diesel locomotives, period, are really just not given enough credit, despite the fact of what they can do.
Well, and they're not progressing properly. We have the technology to make them far better than what they are. A good example of this is the regulations that KLW is fighting with right now, making a drop-in, plug-and-play replacement, and we have a lot of technological systems, computerized systems, but the issue with using a computerized base, and this is why we won't progress technology, why we have the stuff setting on standby, it would work perfectly if we'd put it into use, is a terror of cybersecurity. Remember, security through obscurity, which is how pretty much all security systems work. You keep a certain amount of information obscure, and people hopefully don't figure it out. But security through obscurity does not work. You have to actively make a physical way to prevent someone from receiving codes, sending codes. You know, a key in a lock. If you're standing 10 foot away from a lock and say lock open, and it has, let's say, an automated opener, well, the lock opens and the door can swing free. But if you take the voice command automatic lock opener out of the equation and make it so you have to physically put a key in the lock, you have added a degree of safety. And in the same logic, if we put a automation system and a higher level of technology in the motive power, which is another thing that railroads are just hell-bent on, they want to make sure that when they roll out newer technologies, that it writes humans out of the equation. And this is just a progression of how technology goes. You replace humans' jobs with robots. And we're getting to the point where we'd better kind of cut back on that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have the technology. It's just we're not using it. Same for model railroading. If we go into that topic later on, I've been on an ongoing project for the last year and a half of trying to update digital command control. And our final determination for it is it's an absolute dog crap program. It was cruddy to begin with. It was inferior technology, even in 1987 when it went into production. It is certainly an inferior technology today. It is incapable of being good. It is incapable of being reliable. It is quite literally the most dog poo pile of steaming turd that you could see in the technology world. It is painfully slow. It has horrible signal reception. It is transmitted by quite literally the worst possible method possible. And I cannot stress that enough. Putting electricity through two rails is the dumbest thing I have ever heard of. And most importantly here, we're transmitting electricity through two rails and hoping to pick this up through hardened steel wheels, which, by the way, we're using plastic wheels for the most part on our rolling stock. This plastic wears off and adheres to the rail. Plastic is the perfect insulator. We get oils, we get grease, we get everything that the real railroads get on the track, and it blocks the signal and it blocks the power. This is the dumbest thing ever.
And this is why clubs ban plastic wheels.
And buddy, let me tell you something. I've been a part of another long-standing, ongoing project. It's a project of about 15 years to see the impact of plastic wheels on a model railroad. I can show you photos of, and I know I can tell someone if they want to come and ask me, I want to put plastic wheels on my model railroad in HO. What wheels should I use? I have tested, and I'm not joking here, I have tested hundreds of brands of plastic wheels. I have put them to the test. I've seen how quickly they wear down. They all wear down. But I have documented how quickly they wear, how long it takes it to get to the unusable point, and once they get to the unusable point, what is the point of failure? Most of the time we find that the hardened steel rail cuts through the wheel. Like it literally cuts through the wheel. It's bizarre.
Frantic,
Right.
I don't know if I mentioned it. I didn't mention this. I was just about to. Our next episode is gonna be models.
Ooh,
Okay.
This
Need
one's
to make sure.
already almost gone on for 2 hours.
Yeah, we're already at 100. Yeah. If we were to run this episode for another 14 minutes, we would make it to the 2-hour mark.
Listen, it's 12:50.
It's 12:49 here.
And I gotta go
This-
down to the skeet range tomorrow. So
And this is one of the benefits of having Central Time instead of Eastern. It is not even midnight yet.
Well,
alright.
congratulations, Tyler. Aren't you special?
You're a special trophy. Oh
Hey,
my
it's not like I get more
God.
sleep than you guys do.
I have autism.
It's fun.
like
So,
taking
AJ,
time.
I'm assuming you're wanting to wrap up this episode then? Bud?
Listen, yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you all for being a part of this. I had a good time. Hope you all had a good time. I'm really tired, but you listen. All I'm gonna say is, Frantic.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on. Loy's not here, but he was good too. Fisher, thank you for bringing up some of the topics. Tyler, thank you for
You're
being
welcome.
our special guest for today. And UP4014 or Jaden.
Yes.
Sorry. I keep calling you by your profile picture. Jaden, I just want to say thank you for coming aboard. And considering that you are starting that new thing with Chasing Trains USA called Wasatch Videos, I am very interested to see how that goes. But anyways, thank you all for watching the Yappington Central podcast. This transmission is now over. See you all.
Bye.
Remember, praise our Lord.
Goodbye. And
Remember,
enjoy the
look-
next 24 hours. And the
Look,
24-hour
listen,
span
live
after
for
that.
trains. Look,
And the
listen,
one that
live.
comes
Operation
after that.
Lifesaver.
Yay.
Enjoy.